just about time, so you guys can feel free to get started.
Perfect. Okay. Today's marketplace is changing. Just like anyone, consumers are constantly changing and adapting to current trends. To be sure to survive, businesses have to adapt, find new ways, new places and locations to find new customers and stay ahead of their competition. We are Lynn University, and we will be presenting Coinsource. Coinsource is a privately owned Bitcoin ATM company. It owns their own software that has the ability to go really rapidly. It's actually acquired a Bit license, which is the first Bitcoin ATM company to get it licensed in New York. With over 5,000 Bitcoin ATMs in the United States, there is a growing competition, but we believe that Coinsource has great potential. In a very rapid growing industry, we have noticed that 42 million Bitcoin wallets were set up globally since last December. On top of that, we noticed that 470,000 normal ATMs are our target market as well. To reach the ultimate goal of 100,000 Bitcoin ATMs for Coinsource, our team has developed a B2B strategy. Introducing our strategy and tactics is James.
Thanks, Robin. So I'd now like to introduce the Simpler, Safer, and Smarter campaign. For this campaign, we've developed a strategy where we segmented the marketplace and concentrated on 3 specific target audiences. Next, please. The first target audience is going to be Bitcoin ATM proprietors and manufacturers. We've identified 29 of these companies that we think would benefit the most. The ideal prospects to outsource their software outsource their software needs to Coinsource. By joining the Coinsource network, they'll get these young and growing businesses will get access to the licensing, the regulatory compliance, industry-leading processing, and cash deliveries, and really be a one-stop shop for their business needs. So by outsourcing their software, these businesses can make their processes simpler. I'm sorry, there's a noise in the background, excuse me. Next slide, please. Our second target audiences are going to be private ATM owners and commercial businesses. Out of the 470,000 ATMs in the U.S., 278,394 are privately owned, which makes up 59% of all ATMs. Next slide, please. So now there are major problems when it comes to privately owned ATMs. Just last year alone, over $1 billion was stolen in relation to the use of privately owned ATMs. So with Coinsource's Know Your Customer authentication, whether as an alternative or a supplement to a traditional ATM, Coinsource provides a safer way to conduct their business. Next slide, please. So many of these privately owned ATMs are actually owned by the businesses in which they're in. So we developed a criteria for identifying the commercial businesses that we wish to go into. So preferably privately owned with more than $10 million in sales and high levels of foot traffic, and in select cities where we know there's a high demographic of millennials. And so additional revenue streams through Coinsource will help improve one of the important metrics that all these businesses use, which is return on investment per retail square foot. Next slide, please. So these are the 10 major cities that we've selected. Now, we've selected these on the basis of population of millennials, Bitcoin ATM users. Yes, and next slide, please. So these are the commercial businesses in those cities that we're looking to go into. So independent hotels like the Breakers and Palm Beach Club, retailers and international airports like Hudson News, pharmacies like CVS and Duane Reade, convenience stores like Casey's, Wawa, and 7-Eleven, grocery stores like Woolies, and cannabis dispensaries, which is going to be the focus, which is going to be the industry that we're going to explore during this presentation. Next slide, please. So the cannabis industry, it's almost completely cash-based, and with a revolving piece of legislation called the Farm Bill that's voted on every 4 years, we're anticipating complete legalization by 2026. And the other thing that's popular about this industry is that it's not only popular with millennials and who we anticipate to be the ideal Bitcoin user, but actually our next target audience, which are going to be baby boomers. So next slide, please. So our third and final target audience are going to be individual investors, specifically affluent baby boomers. Now, this generation controls 2/3 of the nation's entire disposable income. And with 10,000 retiring daily, they're moving in favor of passive investment and passive income strategies. So by buying a Coinsource ATM, this allows these investors to create income streams off the growing number of Bitcoin users without actually being exposed to the volatility of the coin itself. So for this market, Bitcoin is not a service, but it's an investment. And we think that the over 2.56 million affluent baby boomers can invest smarter with Bitcoin. With Coinsource, excuse me. Next slide. So our tactics are a 12-month fully integrated business-to-business campaign. We're going to use a multi-pronged approach using both traditional and untraditional methods. Next slide, please. So here's our budget breakdown. We've established a budget of $10 million based off 20% of last year's revenue. And now this is going to be used in traditional methods like trade shows, PR and pitch decks and sales materials, as well as untraditional methods like email funneling and SEO. Next slide, please. So cryptocurrency and Bitcoin industry trade shows are great for sales opportunities, as well as speaking opportunities and gathering content that can then be posted on Coinsource that will improve our Google quality score for search engine optimization. But we not only suggest attending and getting booths at cryptocurrency and Bitcoin trade shows, but also the industries that we're looking to go into. So attached in the appendix are a list of, again, not only the cryptocurrency trade shows, but as well as a few cannabis industry trade shows. Next slide, please. So now for one of our untraditional methods, we're suggesting the use of search engine optimization. So this is bidding on specific keywords, as well as improving URL, which helps the search engines. It's called crawl accessibility. It helps them find your information better, and it overall improves the Google quality score. And the purpose of this is to increase Coinsource's ranking on search engines when searching for specific key terms like Bitcoin ATM or Bitcoin ATM software. Next slide, please. So here are a few of those SEO keywords. Now you can actually tailor them for the specific industry and for the specific web user that you're looking to capture with our ads. Next slide, please. So here are some of the ads that we've drawn up. This ad specifically will cost $2,000, $2,432 a month to run, and it will have a potential audience size of close to 151 million. And again, we think a combination of these traditional forms using the trade shows and some of the untraditional methods like email funneling and SEO will help Coinsource communicate to its target audience that it can make their business simpler, it can make their ATM safer, and it can make their investments smarter. So now I'd like to introduce Matthew, who's going to run some of the financials behind this.
Thank you, James. First of all, I want to talk about the number on the top of the page. That number represents the U.S. market of the Bitcoin ATM industry. That industry is growing today at a rate of 125%. Coinsource has a competitive advantage against many competitors. Because of that, we managed to calculate that Coinsource has a 12% market share in that market. 12% of market share equals to $50.6 million in revenue. Now that we know where Coinsource stands, let's see where we're heading. Next slide, please. Obviously, the revenue of Coinsource is directly correlated to the number of ATM owned by Coinsource. We believe that the number of ATM owned by Coinsource will grow at a rate of 125% for the first 2 project years. That number is based on the industry growth. We also are forecasting the number of transactions per ATM to decrease by 15% every year of our projected model because of the market saturation. Based on those assumptions, we plan on revenue of $251 million for Coinsource in 2024 with nearly 6,000 ATMs. Next slide, please. This is a representation of our prediction regarding the industry and Coinsource's position in it. We are planning on an important growth in that industry. However, as other players will enter the game through the years, we are planning on a decrease of the market share for Coinsource from 12% today to 6% in 2024. Our margin will remain the same through the 5 projected years, which brings us to an operating income in 2024 of $51.5 million against only $10.3 million in 2020, which represents an increase of 500% over the 5 projected years. Next slide, please. This is the model we use to calculate all the numbers I talked to you about. Next slide, please. And last but not least, we want to thank you all for the great opportunity that has been given to us. So on behalf of Robin, James, and Lynn, thank you all.
Thank you, Lynn University. We really appreciate the insights, guys. So we'll open it up for judges' questions now.
Really well done, guys. I appreciated the financial forecasting, and can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
I appreciated the financial forecasting and the flow of your presentation as a whole. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the cannabis dispensaries and the recommendation there. Did you guys consider any obstacles to enacting that strategic directive, particularly considering the legal and regulatory environment and the risk there?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to legislation, because of thing, I mean, one of the reasons why the cannabis industry is almost entirely cash-based is because they're in a really interesting gray area when it comes to federal law and especially federal tax law. So we're not too sure about Coinsource's ability to place ATMs in cannabis industry. Not too sure if there's any legislation that would stop that. We haven't found any. However, we do know that banks cannot sponsor ATMs in cannabis industry, in cannabis dispensaries. So we had actually seen that as an opportunity for Bitcoin ATMs to be placed there.
Good, thank you.
I have a comment as well as a compliment, more than a question here. Very well done, very thorough, very broad-based, but also down to more of a micro level as well. So great job, guys. But I'm gonna pick on you a little bit on your branding. I really liked the simple, safer, smarter, alliterative brand. It's a great job on that. It really stood out to me. I would suggest, though, that maybe to consider replacing the S, the 3 S's, with the Bitcoin symbol, and underneath it saying with Coinsource. So you tie all of that together, Bitcoin, the brand of the Bitcoin associated with Coinsource.
Oh, that's
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Don't feel bad, guys. He's had the same constructive for me for 30 years. Great point. Great point. Yeah, to Ron's point, I love kudos to the budget breakdown. That's definitely, you guys put a lot of time and effort into that, and I know that we both definitely appreciate that. That just goes to show the level of research that you guys did, the depth of research. I've got a question kind of tying back as well into Ron's, which is the cannabis industry. So my question is that, outside from what Coinsource internally knows about the regulatory nature of this industry, do you feel that the high risk aspect of why no major banks have footprints in cannabis dispensaries in the industry, do you feel as though that would risk our bank, which is one of our key differentiators in the industry, that we do have national banking. The cannabis industry is deemed high risk, to your guys' point, a gray area. Cryptocurrency, specifically the cash handling and accepting and management aspect of cryptocurrency, is also high risk. Do you feel that merging one high risk with another high risk is in and of itself an elevated risk?
I kind of think they're independent of each other. I mean, that's a very good question, but when looking why I think that banks don't sponsor ATMs in cannabis industry, I think it has to do with their national brand, really, and kind of their relationship with the federal government and their relationship with the entire country as a whole, really. And I think that they, I don't think it's an opportunity for them. Whereas Coinsource, I think, especially using cryptocurrency and new, especially as some of the older generation sort of phases out in the perceptions on marijuana and cannabis and the high risk that's associated with it get phased out as well. I think it's more of kind of a blank space that's really an opportunity. And I don't think that what makes cryptocurrency ATM and the handling of that high risk, and then what makes the cannabis industry high risk, I don't see like a clear relationship of how those would about how those would enhance the overall risk.
Okay, no, thanks for your answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I have another question that might have to do more with Derek responding or Ron than you guys, but whoever. You mentioned in your memo that Coinsource is the only Bitcoin ATM market to have earned its license, and that's a competitive advantage. So the question is, if that is a competitive advantage, what is the barrier to entry from the at present more prominent ATM companies in the market from getting their own license, and why haven't they?
Great question.
Actually, sorry. I know that we actually had. It's funny because when we had the first call, we had this exact question pop up with Derek, and he explained that like this is not just a one-day process that you could just go through in a day. It's like a 3-year process, and it took a while, and it's a lot of money, and it's something that they need to really invest into. So that's what we discussed during the call. So that was a really interesting point that I thought before cutting Derek off. Sorry.
Oh, no worries, Robin. No, great point, and excellent listening skills. Just because, I do remember this question coming up with you guys in the Q&As, and Robin's right, Mike. It took Coinsource a handful of years and millions of dollars to get to this point. So traditional ATM operators aren't required by the federal government to, and Ron can definitely touch on this a lot more in depth than I can, but aren't required to be a registered money service business with the Financial Crimes and Enforcement Network, which is all about compliance with regulation of this, especially with that KYC AML aspect. So there is no real barrier to entry. Some clients that I've actually already signed to our platform as a service model are interested in exploring that. We, from an advisory level, always, tell them that that's why we built out the model to be a la carte, because should they obtain a crypto-friendly bank and abide by all of the processes that are involved with that, becoming an MSB, hiring a chief compliance officer, taking ownership of the full flow of funds and the cash management, all of those aspects are doable, just because, clearly we've done it. It's just how long and how much investment do they want to take and to get to that point themselves? Do they feel that can be more profitable for them to invest in the infrastructure and foundation like we have over the years, or just get up and running and start seeing the revenue within weeks?
It'd be to your best interest to keep that gap as wide as you can from your competition and exploit it while you can before one day they wake up and obtain it themselves.
Oh, great point.
Yeah, very fair point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I love the presentation, guys. It really was very well done. Very well done. I love the budget breakdown, just the whole financial forecasting. To Ron's point, it was very, very good, and it kind of reaffirmed what we have been doing so far to really get exposure, especially during these times with the coronavirus.
Yeah.
The trade shows and expos that I had attended in the past here recently in Las Vegas and in Houston, specifically targeted towards traditional ATM owners, has proven to give us so much momentum during these times when everybody is working from home, that it gave us so much exposure right out of the gate with very little cost. I mean, if you're talking about the costs of, me flying to those locations and staying in a hotel and paying to show off our new product, it's definitely worth its weight in gold with what we're seeing on the return of it.
That's well said, Derek. Again, great job, guys. You brought the memo to life